In the Bal Leela, or the childhood glories of Lord Krishna, it is described in Bhagavad Puran Katha by Shukadevji Muni as he narrated the beautiful Bhagavad Puran to Raja Parikshit, and of course by extension we share in this divine narration. And one day Lord Krishna, together with the children, the boys in Vrindavan, they were young children at that time, they were playing upon the banks of the Yamuna river. And as they played upon the banks of the Yamuna river, they were playing with a ball. The mothers had also come to the banks of the Yamuna. They were washing clothes. Of course, Krishna avatar has taken place more than 5,000 years ago. And those who are old enough to remember time, before you had pipe-borne water at your home, you would go either by the pond or by the river to do your laundry. And so it was, my dear friends, more than 5,000 years ago in Vrindavan. The mothers had gone to the banks of the Yamuna river, and there they were washing their clothes and performing their laundry duties and so on. And they had brought along the children with them. So they were washing and they were babysitting at the same time. But Lord Krishna and the little boys had a ball, and they were playing with the ball upon the banks of the Yamuna river. And on one particular occasion, the ball was thrown a little too hard and it went into the water of the Yamuna river. And so one of the little boys, Lord Krishna's childhood friends, jumped into the river, the Yamuna, to retrieve the ball. But within the waters of the Yamuna lived a terrible serpent by the name of Kaliya. Very poisonous and venomous snake. And Kaliya was actually awaiting this occasion, my dear friends, that he wanted to be delivered from a shrap that was pronounced upon him. He was actually a rishi. And on account of disrespect paid and puja and so on, that shrap was pronounced upon him and became a snake. And so he was actually awaiting that moment when he could be delivered. When he sought forgiveness from Durvasa Muni, he was told that it is only when Bhagavan Vishnu takes Krishna avatar that you can be relieved of this form of this serpent. And so as the little boy went into the water to retrieve the ball, Kaliya wrapped the coils of that serpent around the little child and pulled him under the water. So the mothers are there, they're washing the clothes, but as we say, one eye is on the children. So the moment the child disappeared, they call out to Krishna. And even at that young age, he had already displayed, the prowess of a grown-up person. At that age, he had already killed Putna. Putna, of course, is the demoness, the Rakshasi that came to kill baby Krishna. At that time, he was still a baby. And she said to Yashoda Maya, "Oh my, this child, this baby is so beautiful. Can you give him to me? I will babysit and you go and do your housework." And I guess any mother would be happy for that opportunity. Someone is going to babysit for you free of charge and you can just go ahead and do your housework. So Yashoda Maya accepted, the proposal of Putna. But Putna had come with her breast smeared with poison. And so after some time, babies do get hungry. And Putna tried to suckle baby Krishna. But my dear friends, he knew, even though he was in the form of the baby, Bal Roop, he knew Putna's intention. He knew Putna was sent there by Kansa. Kansa actually had the intention of, getting rid of baby Krishna. For he, Krishna, the 8th child of Devaki, was supposed to be the cause of his death. And so he had tried in various forms to kill Krishna, and all had failed, had been unsuccessful. And so he had enlisted the help of Putna. My dear friends, and so she offered her breast to baby Krishna that, he would suckle upon the breast, and this he did. But, my dear friends, the powerful force with which he suckled the breast of Putna, my dear friends, this brought about the demise of Putna. She was killed in that particular interaction with baby Krishna. So she came with the intention of killing him, but instead she was killed by baby Krishna. So they knew, my dear friends, from the time of his childhood that he had extraordinary powers. And so when the little boy disappeared under the water, they called out to Krishna for assistance. And my dear friends, without hesitation, he dove into the water. By this time, Kaliya had sunk to the deepest depths of that Yamuna river. Last year, I spent 3 weeks in India. When you stood from the Taj Mahal and you looked at the expanse of the Yamuna River, and you know the great thing of the Hindu scripture, what you read that is thousands of years old, you can go to present-day India today and still see the Yamuna River there, still see Vrindavan, the birthplace of Lord Krishna there. You know, when Kans had killed the 7 children of Devaki, there was a place where he disposed the bodies of the children. That is still there, you know. So all the replicas, my dear friends. So let nobody say to you, this what you read here in this ancient text never happened. We have all the relics of all the cities, the Vrindavan, Gokula, Mathura, my dear friends. Only Dwarika sunk beneath the ocean waters. At the time of Lord Krishna's ascension, Dwarikapuri sank beneath the waters of the ocean. And that too is factual. Today, National Geographic cameras, my dear friends, they did their deep sea expedition. And exactly what is described in Bhagavad Puran, the description of that city of Dwarikapuri, my dear friends, is still revealed by the cameras of National Geographic, lying now beneath the waters of the ocean. So exactly what is documented here is seen in present-day India. So there's a link between these ancient texts, thousands of years old, and present-day India. And so that Yamuna River, I'm saying to you, my dear friends, you go and you marvel at the width of that river. When you stand on one end at the Taj Mahal, you can barely make out the bank of the opposite end of the Yamuna River. That's a great expanse of the river that we speak of. It is this river that Kaliya lived in. And it is this river that he had pulled this little child beneath the waters of the Yamuna River. And it is here Bhagwan Krishna, in the form of that little boy, he dove into the water. And my dear friends, as he wrapped his hands around the snake, he forced Kaliya to release the child. And the tremendous force, my dear friends, that he exerted, you know what is a bear hug? This is more than a bear hug. The tremendous force that he exerted upon Kaliya, as he released the child and the child went to the banks of the Yamuna to safety, Kaliya, gasping for breath, came to the surface of the water, and the hood of the snake is now seen above the surface of the water. And it is described to us in Bhagavad Puran, my dear friends, Bhagwan Krishna now climbed upon the hood of the snake and taking the basudi, he played upon the basudi and danced upon the head of Kaliya. There was a wonderful Brahman, a most knowledgeable Brahman by the name of Atmadev. He was married to Dhundhuli. That's the name of his Dulahin. And they desired very much to have a child. But all their desires, my dear friends, were not fulfilled. And Atmadev had gotten frustrated. And he had said to Dhundhuli, I will leave this home and I will not return, O Dhundhuli, until Bhagwan Krishna sees it fit that he will bless us with his son that we desire. And so bidding farewell to his Dulhin, Dhundhuli, Atmadev left home. He went to the forest, my dear friends, upon the banks of the Narmada River. He sat beneath a peepal tree. The peepal tree, of course, is very sacred to Lord Krishna. And there, he's praying for the blessings and the intervention of Lord Krishna. Several months passed him. He did not become discouraged. He had that firm belief that Bhagwan Krishna was going to come to bless him, to fulfill that desire. Persistence, perseverance, dedication, very important, my dear friends. Whoever we are, whatever stage we're at, persistence is needed, perseverance is needed, dedication is needed. If they give up at the first instant, they find something hard or difficult to do in the paper, then of course they would not attain success. If you go to work and you say the work is too hard, and you're not persistent, you do not persevere. You know, in today's world, people have a tendency to give up too easily. So sometimes a person gets a job, he goes to work first day, he finds the job too hard, he fired the job. He prefers to be at home, where he's not inconvenienced. Everything takes some effort. And so it's no different in devotion to God. So the same persistence is needed, and perseverance is needed, and dedication is needed. After one day he could say, look, this is too troublesome, it's taking too long. Why hasn't Lord Krishna responded to me? After 1 week, he could have gotten up and returned home and said, Hundulu, look, let's forget about this. No children first. He persisted, my dear friends. And after several months had passed, Bhagwan Krishna manifested as Adi Purush. Not in this form of Krishna that we know him with the Basuri and so on. But when Atmadev looked at this sant in front of him, he felt as though he was seeing Lord Krishna. It was not Lord Krishna at all, but that devotion within him, my dear friends, when he looked at this sant, it was Krishna Bhagwan, but of course in the disguise of this Adi Purusha. And so he says, Prabhu, bless me with the gift of a child. And Bhagwan is saying to him, why are you calling me Prabhu? I am an ordinary Rishi. I am not Prabhu at all. You know, once Bhagwan Krishna wanted to test this couple, very elderly couple, but they were great devotees of Lord Krishna, very poor. Every single day they would light their diya and offer arati and perform puja and so on to Bhagwan Krishna. So Bhagwan Krishna similarly took the form of a normal sadhu one day, and he came to the old people's home, and he says to the old couple, I'm very hungry. Do you have anything to eat? All they had was one hand of ripe fig. They themselves did not have much. But again, when they looked at the sadhu, their intense devotion for Lord Krishna, they felt as they were seeing Bhagwan Krishna himself. You see? And so they and all called him, Prabhu, come, sit, sit here. And of course, as he sat there, my dear friends, they're now offering him the fig. So they hand him the bunch of fig, and he says, no, no, no. I will not accept it like this. You must feed me the fig. You see? So first he asked for the fig, but now he wants them to feed the fig to him. And again, they have no hesitation doing so, because when they look at him, they feel as they are seeing Lord Krishna. But of course, Bhagwan is in the form of a sadhu. And so the old man would take the fig from the hand or the bunch of fig, and he will give it to the lady, and she will peel the fig, but she's looking so intently at Bhagwan in the form of the sadhu. When she peeled the fig, she threw away the fig, and she give him the skin to eat. And he ate the skin. So this happened once, it happened twice. The old man too is taken up with the form of Bhagwan in this sadhu, you know. After the third fig, the old man is coming to his senses, and he says to his Dulahim, concentrate on what you're doing. You're feeding the skin and you're throwing away the fig. Oh, and when she looked at the mistake she made, Chama karo, Prabhu, this grave error I have made, and you did not complain. And now she concentrated on peeling the fig and made sure she threw away the skin. And when she gave him the fig, he says, no, no, no. The taste has changed. I do not want any more. The skin was tasting better than the fig. Why? Something had changed. The concentration was now not on Bhagwan, but the act of peeling the fig. You know, that bhav had been lost, my dear friends. And then he revealed his true form of Bhagwan Krishna, and he blessed them both. So similarly, Atmadev is looking at this Adi Purush, and he's thinking like this is Bhagwan Krishna himself. And so Bhagwan is asking him in the disguise of that sant, tell me what you need, O Brahman. Why are you performing this tapasya here? And he says to him, Prabhu, I am without offspring. I desire to have a son. And Bhagwan said, let me look at your hand. And by looking at his hand and the lines on his hand, he says, you're not destined to have a son for 7 generations. Return to your home. This is not in your destiny at all. Give up this futile attempt. Atmadev was downtrodden. He was devastated by the words of this Adi Purush. And after he thought for a moment, he says, if you cannot deliver this blessing unto me, then right here in this river, I will not return to my Dulahin. I do not wish to return empty-handed, or without that assurance that this blessing of a child would be bestowed upon us. Right here in this river, I will take my life. And so he got up, my dear friends, with that intention of jumping into the river, and there Bhagwan revealed his true form. He picked a fruit from a nearby tree, and he blessed this fruit and gave it to Atmadev. Return to your home, give this to your Dulahin. And once she eats this fruit, O Atmadev, in due course of time, you will be blessed with a virtuous son. And so this he did. He took home the fruit to Dhunduli. Very jubilantly, very happy, he says to her, Dhunduli, our prayers will be answered. And he related to her the experience he had had with that sant in the forest. Give this, the sant says to me, give this to Dulahin. Eat this, O Dhunduli, and you will be blessed with that son that we desire. He gave it to her, my dear friends. He had not even one doubt in his mind. He did not entertain any doubt whatsoever that his wife would not do as he had asked her to do. In fact, he gave her the fruit, and while she's holding the fruit in her hand, he goes to his puja corner at his home, just as many Hindu homes would have a puja corner with murtis and so on, and he goes to give thanks to Bhagwan there. Gad Sudama hota meito dauda dwarika ata. When Sudama came to you, O Krishna, without even asking, he was blessed abundantly with palace and wealth and riches and so on. So too, O Krishna, we come to you, seeking your intervention and blessings in our lives. And so, my dear friends, whilst Atmadev is in the mandir, giving thanks to Lord Krishna, Dulahin Dhunduli is holding the fruit in her hand, considering what to do. At that same moment, Dhunduli's sister, who is 2 months pregnant, happened to come to visit Dhunduli. So Dhunduli is saying to her, listen, Atmadev has spent several months in the forest, and he claims that this fruit has been so blessed. If I eat this fruit immediately, the blessing of a son would be bestowed upon us. In due course of time, that desire that we both have will be fulfilled. And her sister stopped her. No, no, no. This is not a good idea at all. Listen, this child that I'm carrying, I'm 2 months pregnant. In due course of time, when this child is born, I will give this child to you. And you would say to Atmadev, this child is his. Should she listen to the sister? Is this good advice? Obviously, it's not good advice. This is a form of deceit and treachery now that is being hatched between Dhunduli and her sister. She says, I do not wish to nurture this child as a mother would nurture a newborn. I do not have the time for this. I will give this child to you and Atmadev. Do not eat this fruit. Throw it away immediately. Obviously, the better judgment of Dhunduli should have prevailed. But you know, the name Dhunduli itself means someone who is used or accustomed to having their own way. The meaning of the word Dhunduli, he or she who is accustomed to having their own way all the time. And so, she had her own way. Atmadev said, eat the fruit. Her sister said, nahi, throw it away. And what did she do? She threw it through the window. But the fruit fell near the cow. Atmadev also had a cow. And the cow was grazing not too far. And many cows, are fond of eating fruits. If you feed them fig, you feed them apple and so on, they're going to eat the fruit. So Atmadev's cow also loved eating fruits. And so the cow is there, he's eating, she's eating, she comes upon the fruit, she eats the fruit. So what happens? Dhunduli feigns sickness. Every time Atmadev comes home, she's lying on the bed. She says, oh, this pregnancy is too much for me. I cannot do the housework, I cannot do the chores. And he says to her, you rest. He's so happy, that the child that they have anticipated for so long, the child is on the way. So he would say to Dhunduli, you rest, lie down on the bed and you rest. I will do the household chores and so on. So she pretended, my dear friends, that role of being a pregnant mother, she pretended to, the last detail. Keeping out of the way of Atmadev, who never pried, who never asked any question, but was so satisfied that at least the blessings of Bhagavan was going to bring to them the gift of that child. And so, my dear friends, some months later, Dhunduli's sister gave birth to a boy, a son. She brought this child home and said to Dhunduli, this child is yours. And when Atmadev came home that evening, joyfully, Dhunduli says to her husband, our son has been born. Atmadev was beside himself with joy and happiness. He accepted this child, this son, as his own. And he named his son Dhundukari. But 2 months later, the cow gave birth. But very unusually, the cow gave birth to a human child with big ears, cow-like ears. Atmadev was mystified, he was confused. But he says to Dhunduli, look, all these prayers and vrat and puja and yajna and so on we have done, Bhagavan has doubly blessed us. Instead of one son, we have 2 sons. So he accepted this child as well as his own. That's a child who was born from the fruit that was blessed and given to him that Dhunduli had thrown out of the window. And he named the second child Gokaran. भोर भई बजी मधुर मुरलिया कैसे धरे जिया भीर O Krishna, dawn arrives when you play upon the Basuri. The music of your Basuri, O Krishna, dispels the darkness not just of the night time, but the darkness within our lives. Your music, your words, your blessings, O Krishna, resonate beyond Vrindavan and Mathura and Gokula. Throughout the entire world, Dard na jane, Peer na jane, Shyama harope Peer. Our anguish and sufferings, O Krishna, disappears by simply hearing your name. Unaware of the deceit that Dhunduli and her sister had practiced, unaware that his son Dhundukari was not even his own son, he loved them both equally, Dhundukari and Gokaran. That home of Atmadev was blessed. When the children were young babies, despite the deceit and so on of Dhunduli, when the 2 boys were mere babies, just 2 months apart, there was so much joy that overflowed from the home of Atmadev. They both shared. Dhunduli never revealed to Atmadev, of course, what had happened, but they both shared. in that joy and happiness. For the first 2 formative years of the children, my dear friends, the happiness of Atmadev knew no bounds. In our homes as well, when we secure Bhagwan's blessings, Bhagwan's blessings, my dear friends, brings to our homes and to our families that harmonious living. Our homes are filled with that love and joy of that familial existence and family living. In many homes today there is discord, there's disunity, there's upheaval, there's violence, there are confrontations and so on. But this does not have to be so. We can create and maintain in our homes, my dear friends, that loving, harmonious atmosphere when we propitiate that divine Lord. Bolo bolo Radhe Sham Yugal Charana. And what does it take? Simply to chant Radhe Sham, the name of Radha and Krishna. It says, Itahi Ayodhya Nirmal Saryu Uttamathura Shital Yamuna. That same bliss that pervaded Ayodhya and Mathura. My dear friends, as the boys grew, however, Atmadev noticed a vast difference in the 2 boys. Atmadev was a Brahmin, wanted to teach his sons mantras and bhajans and so on. And so from a young age he would call them and he would teach them the mantras. He noticed something. Gokaran would readily grasp the mantras and bhajans, and in one, as we say, he would be able to chant the mantras and bhajans that his father had taught him. But Dhundukari, you know, when you say somebody had hard, several times, repeatedly, the same line, the same mantra would be given to Dhundukari, but he would be unable to say it. So he's noticing a difference, you know, as the boys are growing up 4 or 5 years old, that's the age where we're supposed to begin to teach them simple little things. The youngest child, if you teach them Om Namah Shivaya, they will be able to say it, you know. So we teach our children from a young age, my dear friends. So this is a difference he began to notice between Dhundukari and Gokaran. And as they grew even older, 9, 10 years old, Gokaran would be a very loving child. He would be respectful to his parents, Atmadev and Dhunduli, whereas Dhundukari was always rough and aggressive and disrespectful. Gokaran would go to the cow and play with the cow lovingly. Dhundukari would beat the cow. So there's a vast difference, my dear friends. Dhundukari from a young age displayed a very cruel side of himself towards his own parents and also to the animals and so on. And also, of course, his difficulty with learning. It is said, you know, while the child is yet in the womb of the mother, certain things begin to register on that child. If the mother is loving and kind, the child, that is passed on to the child. We know what the mother eats and what the mother drinks. The child shares in that. This is why mothers are, you know, during pregnancy advised to eat good foods and drink good things and so on. You know, mothers who are smokers, for instance, their children who are born, you know, with lung cancer. What the mother smokes, it begins to affect the child in the womb. But also, the mother thought processes are also passed on to the child. And we know what Dhundulu's sister was thinking about. There were no pure thoughts in her mind. She was hatching and scheming to deceive Atmadev along with Dhunduli. And all of this has been transferred to Dhundukari, my dear friends. And so from a young age now, he is displaying these drastically different tendencies from his brother Gokaran. Indeed, there are two pathways, and from a young age, Gokaran has accepted the dharmic pathway and Dhundukari, the pathway of adharma. Gokaran has accepted the pathway of devotion and divinity. And Dhundukari, my dear friends, those traits has now appeared in him of unrighteousness and sinfulness. दो रंग दुनिया के और दो रास्ते. Which pathway would we choose? These two brothers, my dear friends, from a very early age has chosen. One pathway leads us to Bhagwan. This is a pathway of devotion covered with flowers. The other pathway leads us to Narak, covered with the thorns of sinfulness. Which pathway have we chosen? Well, obviously, tonight, being here, you have chosen the correct pathway. Your presence in Yajna is a clear indication that you know that this dharmic pathway of devotion leads us back to Bhagwan. But we must also ensure that we guide our children and grandchildren, that they would choose the right pathway as well. You know, if you look at the Mandap area here tonight, you're going to see that the grandchildren of the Kanhai family are here. We have a few, but I'm told there are about 10. Is it? Yes. This is one of the ways, my dear friends, we can assist our children in accepting the correct pathway, where we begin to guide them and direct them and nurture them from a young age. And of course, as they mature, this would remain with them. These experiences in puja and satsang and yajna and so on remains with them. And sometimes when we are no longer here, our time would expire. They would have been taught well. And they too would want to do the same thing. So tomorrow, 70th Janamdin for Mr. Isari Kanhai. People celebrate in different ways, But the best way to celebrate, my dear friends, is by giving thanks to God, not by desecrating God. So you can celebrate in satsang and kusang. Satsang and yajna is a correct medium, the recommended medium in giving thanks to God. And kusang, of course, is the opposite. Some people call it a party. There are all kind of party, Your political party and so on, but the birthday party is a different type of party. And when we celebrate in this disciplined and spiritual manner, my dear friends, this adds to our home and to our family and the children and grandchildren as well. Sadly, in the home of Atma Deva, that which he was unaware of, the deceit of his wife Dhunduli and her sister, has now begun to affect his family. And so, as we say, Dhundukari takes one pathway, Gokaran has taken the other pathway. As you're going to young men now, one day, Dhundukari approaches his mother and says, "Ma, I need money." At that time, as a young man now, grown, Gokaran would go with his father to the mandir and so on, and together they would perform puja and so on. But whenever they would ask Dhundukari, he says, "No, I don't have time for that." If those words sound familiar, there are many people who give you that same response today. In other words, there are many Dhundukaris today who never make time for God. But what would he do? He would steal money from the home and he would go to gamble. And one day he approaches his mother, "Ma, I need some money." But she had become, at this point in time, fed up with the habits of Dhundukari. So she says, "No, nahi, I'm not giving you any money." And so what he did on that day, he beat his mother, Dhundukari, the son that was not born to Dhunduli but born to her sister, and given to her, which she said to Atma Dev, "This is your son." That son, on that particular day, my dear friends, beat his mother and stole her jewels and other monies from that home and ran away with it. When Atmadev returned home that evening and he saw what had happened, well, if you're beaten, you don't have to ask anybody what happened. You see the marks, isn't it? When he saw what had happened, he inquired of Dhunduli, who did this? And she revealed to him, Atmadev, our son Dhundukari, has fallen into the habit of gambling and he's stolen money, and when I tried to stop him, he has beaten me and gone away with the money and jewelry and so on. Atmadev took a very firm decision that day. He says, any home where violence is practiced or perpetrated against any family member, that is no longer a home. That is just a house. It's just a building. The minute, my dear friends, there's violence and aggression and so on in the home, Lakshmi Mata disappears from that home. The blessings of that home begins to diminish. He says, I will no longer stay in this home. He took a rather strong stance. I will not stay in a home or live in a home where this type of violence and disrespect is shown. Today, O Dhunduli, I will leave this home and I will never return. Keeping to his word, my dear friends, Atmadev left and he spent the remainder of his years performing Tirat. Vrindavan, Mathura, Ayodhya, Kashi, Varanasi, he would go to all the places of Tirat and perform puja, my dear friends, and this is how he spent the remainder of his years. Gokaran as well, when he learned of his father's decision, he says, I too will not stay in this home. I too will leave this home today. So by the end of that day, what happened? Dhunduli was stuck in that home with her son Dhundukari. You see, my dear friends, how these matters always comes back full circle to us. Bad decisions that are taken earlier on may not affect us immediately. But everything in due course of time, in the fullness of time, will come back full circle to us. That scheme that she had hatched, my dear friends, she's now stuck with it. And now she becomes fearful for her life. And so as the evening time drew near, Dhunduli decided she was going to run away. Fearful that when Dhundukari returned home, he would beat her again. So what she did? When Atmadev had left and Gokaran had left, my dear friends, as the place grew dark and sensing that Dhundukari would return home at any moment, she ran away into the night. She said, I will run and I will hide. And she ran away, my dear friends. There was a well, there was a pond in her way. But when it's dark, if you do not know the lay of the land, and those days they didn't have street light and things like us. When it's dark, it's pitch dark. Absolutely no light. So she's running away from home, and unknown to her, in her pathway, there was a pond. What happened? She ran straight into the pond. She drowned, and she died in the pond. Isn't this a terrible way to die? It is. But isn't it also terrible what she did? My dear friends, to Atmadev, and the pretense and the deceit that she showed to Atmadev. Terrible decisions bring about terrible consequences. Bole Shri Vrindavan Bihari Lal Ki Jai. So beware, my dear friends, that karmic baggage we must take along with us. And who is packing the baggage? Right now we are packing the baggage. Every single day we're packing the karmic baggage. For every single day we're performing karma, we're performing actions. The good karma, fear not. This will help us along in that journey. The bad karma, be very fearful. This will make our journey very difficult. When Dhundukari learned that all had gone, he was very happy. He now had a house for himself. And so those miscreants that he had for friends, as his friends, he invited them to move in with him. Their sole mission on a daily basis was to plan whose home and which individuals they are going to steal, to attack, to loot, to plunder. Whereas you would plan on a daily basis what chores, what work you have to perform, the actions of Dhunduli and his companions, my dear friends, his cohorts, were very different from us. Every single day, which village we're going to, which home we're going to. And so, my dear friends, one day they went to a distant village, very wealthy home, and they stole from that home. And on that occasion, my dear friends, the wealth, the money that they brought back home was more than normal. And sometimes, even among thieves, when you see more money than usual, they began to get a little bit jealous of Dhundukari. Remember, they stayed in Dhundukari's home, So when he come home with the money, he's securing the money. But they all went on the same mission. So why is Dhundukari alone securing the wealth? He knows the home well, and he knows where it's safe to keep the money. So, whilst he slept that night, they made a plan. His friends made a plan. We cannot have this happening. Dhundukari is controlling the loot. So how do you get over a problem like that? Let us get rid of him. Let us kill him. Once he's out of the picture, then all this wealth will be ours. And from now on, whenever we would perform the same mission, stealing and so on, we would distribute the wealth equitably. So my dear friends, they decided to hang him whilst he was sleeping. They got the rope, they tied the rope around his neck, and as they begin to, long ago the rafters and so on were visible in the home. People didn't have nice ceiling and so on that you have now. All the rafters and everything was visible from the roof. So they attempting to sling him up. They have already tied the rope around his neck. It has gone over the raft, and as they begin to pull now, of course, he awakes from sleep and he begins to fight them. And so they take the firewood from the chulha. Now homes don't have chulha anymore, but every single home long time had a chulha. So the fire was burning, they were also preparing food, after they had worked hard all day and stealing from people's home, they were now hungry. So the food was cooking and they were planning to get rid of the Dhundukari. So they take out some pieces of firewood from the chulha. So while they're trying to hang him, they're also beating him and burning him at the same time, because it's, live firewood that they have drawn from the chulha. Well, they succeeded in hanging, burning, and beating Dhundukari to death. Can someone die in 3 ways? They hung him, they beat him, and they burned him all at once. And he died. When he died, they cut him down, they buried him within that house. That house of Atmadev became the grave of Dhundukari. And his friends took the money, my dear friends, that he had hidden away from them, and they ran away from that home and never returned. Nobody knew Dhundukari had died. His mother has drowned Dhunduli. She has drowned in the pond. Atmadev and Gokardan says they will not live in a home where violence takes place. So they on Tirat. And he has died, he's been murdered, and he's been buried there. Nobody did not offer any tilanjali or pinda for him. Nobody has performed dasgat, the shaving for him. Nobody has performed the shrad, the bandara for him. And what happens to a person like that? That person becomes a bhoot. The form of the bhoot, they suffer terribly. When the necessary rites are not performed, the pret, the deceased, becomes a bhoot. The mouth of the bhoot is described in Garud Puran as Suchimukh. Big like the eye of a needle. You take the thread to thread the needle, the mouth of the boot is so big. The boot can't harm you. People become fearful of boot and so on. The boot needs help. Because the boot feels thirst and hunger. But if your mouth big like the needle eye, how much food you think you could eat? Not very much. So he suffered terribly, my dear friends. There is suffering after death. Yes, there is. If you do not, do what is right and live that good life and God-fearing life. He suffered terribly. Hunger and thirst and so on. But what could he do? How could he call for help? If you need help, you go to someone's home or you call them on the phone or you WhatsApp them, I need help, I need some assistance, and some assistance will be given to you. Dhundukari has no means of communication, but he appeared to his brother Gokaran in a dream. And sometimes, people would say a family member has passed away, they have dreamt that individual, and in the dream, certain things can be revealed. This is the only mode of communication for the departed. And so he appeared to Gokaran in that dream, and Dhundukari in that dream was able to show Gokaran what had happened to him, how he had died, and how he is buried in that home. And he pleads with Gokaran for help. Receiving this dream, Gokaran next morning acted upon the dream by consulting with his guru. And the guru says to him, it is only if you perform Bhagavad Puran Yajna can you redeem Dhundukari of his sins. And so Gokaran made all preparations, my dear friends, for Bhagavad Puran Yajna. As well, this is Gyan Yajna we're performing. So there's only 2 sessions of Bhagavad, because we're doing 2 sessions of Shiv Puran and 2 sessions of Ramayana and 1 session of Devi Bhagavad. But of course in Bhagavad Puran, when you're performing Bhagavad Puran Yajna, of course you have 3 times per day Katha, and of course 1 on the Sunday morning. Right? So that's 7 3 is 21 plus 1 will give you 22 sessions of Bhagavad Puran Katha. And he organized Yajna, he invited the families and friends, my dear friends, just as this family has done here. And he himself, he was very knowledgeable. He himself read Bhagavad Puran Katha. And as that Bhagavad Puran Yajna began, Dhundukari entered into a length of bamboo. Well, now nobody uses bamboo to make tent anymore. There was a time, those who are old enough will remember, when you're doing Yajna and so on, all the tent would be built with bamboo. But now that does not happen anymore. We have, rent a tent. But long ago, all the tent would be bamboo tents. So he enters, Dhundukari enters into a length of bamboo, 7 joints long. Remember, he's in the form of the boot. So he enters into that bamboo, and at the end of each day's katha, a sound, like when people burst in bamboo, it does make a noise, isn't it? Right? So he enters into the length of bamboo, and at the end of each day's katha, an explosive sound will be heard, and that joint, the first joint, cracked open. End of the second day, the second joint cracked open. Third and fourth and fifth day, the 5th joint cracked open. At the end of the 7th day, the last joint cracked open, and a divine form, Dhundukari, and a divine form emerged from the bamboo. He's now no longer in the form of a preta. He's in a very divine spiritual form, my dear friends. That listening to the 7 days of Bhagavad Puran Yajna had transformed him from the form of a preta, my dear friends, into a divine entity that Bhagavan Krishna was willing to accept into Vaikuntha Lok. And so he bowed to Gokaran, he thanked Gokaran, Bhaiya, it is on account of what you have done. You have freed me. This is the power of Bhagavad Puran Katha, my dear friends. You have freed me. And this is why, those, again, if you throw your minds back 40, 50 years ago, most times when people perform Yajna was Bhagavad Katha, Bhagavad Puran, Because the older people understood the importance, the value, the benefit of performing Bhagavad Yajna and so on. And so majority of times, people had Yajna was Bhagavad Yajna all the time, most of the times. And so he says to his brother, Bhaiya, Gokaran, on account of what you have done, you have freed me from this terrible form, helplessness and hopelessness that I was trapped in. And to the blessings of Lord Krishna, Dhundukari was permitted to go to Vaikuntha Lok. So the others who were there had a question for Gokaran. All of us listened to the same katha that Dhundukari listened to. How come he alone get the opportunity to go to Vaikuntha Lok? What about us? So Gokaran explained to them. Dhundukari, his sole objective was only Lord Krishna and listening to the katha, even though he was not in Manushyarid, human form. His sole objective, he didn't have any house to think about, any wife or children to think about, or land or possessions to think about. But you, the audience, he's saying to them, many of you were thinking about your home and your jewelry and your money and your children or your wife or your husband or your parents, and so this would have diluted your devotion to Lord Krishna. When you come to Yajna, my dear friends, the sole purpose, the sole objective is supposed to be worship to God. And when that can be our sole objective, Gokaran explains to those who were gathered there, then you too can achieve the same benefit and blessings that Dhundukari had achieved. Boliye Shri Vrindavan Bihari Lal Ki Jai.